Andy Reid had some things to say about Eric Bieniemy, his new offensive coordinator, today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
And welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. This is the Locked On Chiefs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for making us your first listen. We really do truly appreciate that. And maybe you can make another first listen, or a second listen to maybe Locked On NFL, the Locked On Chiefs Squad Show. Lots of different options on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are the number one sports podcast network in the United States, and it is all thanks to you. We do truly appreciate that, and all the everydayers out there as well. Go join the Everydayer Club. You can go talk to Ryan and I on Discord. We have our own Discord server talking about Chiefs. Lot to see there. Now, when we get into what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to get into the Super Bowl matchup a little bit later in the show. We're going to also talk about Travis Kelce declining going to the Pro Bowl and whether or not that really means what some people think it means. But we're going to start talking about Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid and what Andy Reid had to say about Eric Bieniemy in today's press conference that he had. That is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. You can find me over there at Chiefs Corner. Lots of stuff that's going to be coming out on the salary cap over the next couple of weeks as we prepare for the eventual free agency period. Chiefs have a lot of decisions to make. We will get into that. We're going to get into the draft as well after that, and talking a lot about getting this team ready for the 2026 season. There are a lot of things that we don't know, but one of the things that we do know right now is that Eric Bieniemy is the new offensive coordinator for Kansas City. Obviously, Ryan and I have been talking about this for the past week. Not a lot of new information about him being there. But the thing that Andy Reid did say that I thought was really interesting when he talked about it in his press conference was, well, there were several things. First, there were other people they talked to. There were other offensive coordinator or potential offensive coordinators that they reached out to and they had interviews with. This tells you exactly kind of what we thought happened. A lot of people seem to think that they just hired Eric Bieniemy. They didn't do any kind of other search. This was their guy all along. That doesn't seem to be the case. The Chiefs are notorious for not allowing information to leak out. And so this does not surprise me that you find out from Reid himself that they did try to talk to some other people about being their offensive coordinator, but obviously it didn't go that direction. And now you're in a situation where you have Eric Bieniemy as your offensive coordinator, and it's going to be an interesting thing to see if they make any changes from what has been going on in Kansas City the past couple of seasons with Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator, if there's going to be any more coaching changes. Reid didn't mince his words. He did say that he believes Matt Nagy deserves to be a head coach and that he hopes he gets a head coaching job. At this point, it doesn't look like that is going to be a reality for Matt Nagy this year. It's possible there's still some job openings out there, but I wouldn't imagine that he ends up getting a head coaching job this year. I would imagine he ends up going and getting a offensive coordinator job at some point this offseason. But there's a key there in that thought process. Kansas City was moving on from Matt Nagy, and maybe it was Matt Nagy that was moving on from Kansas City regardless. There's a little bit of conflicting reports there. It sounds like there are reports coming from Nagy's team, or at least that's where it would appear to be coming from, that Nagy was going to be taking an offensive coordinator job elsewhere so he could get more recognition and, call plays and do different things that he's not really able to do under Andy Reid, because Reid calls most of the plays for the Chiefs. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. I do think he ends up getting a job this season, but he wasn't coming back to Kansas City. But the interesting thing that Reid did say was when he talked about Bieniemy, he said, Eric has learned several different things from the different places he's been. Now, one of the things that Reid did say was that with Eric Bieniemy going to multiple different places, he's been to UCLA, he's been with the Commanders, he's been with the Chicago Bears. He has seen different things that he hadn't seen when he was in Kansas City the last time. So he has gotten more information from different coaching staffs, different philosophies, different ways of playing football, different ways of playing offense, and maybe even a little bit more information on, different ways that they attack offenses. Defensively, they attack offenses, because as an offensive coordinator, as a running back coach, or any kind of coach in the NFL, you need to be looking at it from both sides of the ball, your positional grouping. Regardless, how do you defend specific things is going to play into the offensive coordinator role as well. So it's interesting because Reid did get into the fact that there's possibilities that he's going to allow Bieniemy to call some plays. He didn't get into specifics as to certain situations, but he did say that there could be some situations where he allows him to make some play calls. That doesn't seem to be the case with Matt Nagy. That doesn't seem to be the same thing that happened with Matt Nagy. And I think that that's a huge key here. The question I'm going to have, and that we're not going to see until we actually get into the season and see how things progress, is are we going to get any indication as to who is making the play calls in certain situations? Because it's always going to look like it's going to be Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy is going to be calling the plays to Patrick Mahomes, but he's probably getting them from Andy Reid for the most part. Are we going to find out situations specifically that Eric Bieniemy takes over and calls plays versus when Andy Reid is going to be calling the plays? I don't know that we will find that out. We may not. But it's interesting that he does say that in his press conference because it's not something that he has normally done. He hasn't really given them the opportunity to call plays. He's generally the one that does that, and he likes doing it. So this is a little bit of a departure from what Reid has done in the past. You have to wonder if how that's going to play out in the near future, because obviously if he's willing to make that change, what else is he going to be looking at changing? Still have a lot of questions as to how this is going to play out with the Chiefs in multiple different areas. You still have a running back coach position open. You have some offensive assistant position coaches open. You have to wonder if they're going to be making any other moves over the next couple of weeks with the coaching staff. We don't know right now. Nothing else has been announced, but I would imagine that we will be getting information over the next couple of weeks as to who will fill out this coaching staff and whether or not you will still see guys like Andy Heck back and Tom Melvin, which I would expect Melvin's back. Not sure on Heck. We'll see. Lots of different reports out there that the Chiefs are thinking that he could retire or that maybe he is going to retire, but it's just conflicting information at this point. So many things to talk about when it comes to how this offense is going to play in 2026, how they're going to adjust to what went wrong in 2025. And again, we still don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback. We don't know who the starting tight end is going to be, and we're going to be talking about the guy that was their starting tight end. That's coming up next. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to the final stretch, now is the perfect time to close it out strong. Prize Picks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just football action all the way through the playoffs. Prize Picks is incredibly easy to get started. Pick 2 or more players and choose more or less on their projections. It makes watching games way more engaging, especially during the playoffs and the big game. There's a great way to keep playing fantasy football even after season-long leagues are finished. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available in the U.S., download the Robinhood app to begin. Futures and cleared swaps. Trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. Thank you for making Locked On Chiefs your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Chiefs compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcasting app. You get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Go check it out. Ryan and I are there. You can talk to us. You can ask us questions. You can talk Chiefs with us in that Discord server. Go to lockedonchiefs.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Be sure to go check out this Locked On Everydayer Club. It is very cool to be able to talk to the fans and talk to the fans of our show. We do appreciate that. And again, we appreciate you guys have made us. You are the reason why we are the #1 sports podcast network in the U.S. So we do truly appreciate that as well. Now, when we start talking about Travis Kelce and we start looking at the fact that he has declined to play in the 2026 Pro Bowl, I don't think that this means anything when it comes to whether or not he is going to be playing in a Chiefs uniform in 2026. Now, you could make an argument that he is done with football and that this is just his way of saying, I'm done, I'm retiring, I'm not going to be back. Is that theoretically possible? Sure, it's possible. I don't see it that way. That's not the way I take his decision to step out of this, the Pro Bowl game. I also don't think, as of this recording, he hasn't commented on why he is pulling out of that game. So it's all speculation at this point. But the way I look at this and the way that it makes sense to me is that he has been in Kansas City since he was drafted. He has played in the playoffs and usually is playing football at least till last weekend for most of his career. Like, you look back when he came here with Andy Reid, other than his rookie year when he was injured, he has been in the playoffs every single season, except for this one. And he has played usually well into the AFC Championship game or Super Bowl every year since he's been here. Now, early on in his career, yeah, they lost early on. And, so it could have been only the second week of the playoffs, or it could have been the first week of the playoffs. But my point is, generally speaking, he has been playing football at least 17, 18 games a season for going on over 10 years at this point. And that takes a toll. And when you start looking at that and you consider the fact that he has played in so many games, he's now played basically an entire extra season over most players that don't actually make the playoffs in his career because of all the playoff games that he's played. So to me, this just looks like a situation where he said, I played in the Pro Bowl before. I don't need it. I don't need the money for playing in the Pro Bowl. He's got his own podcast. He's got his own schedule that he needs to do with the podcast. And don't forget, he's engaged to one of the biggest stars in the world. He has got plenty on his plate that has nothing to do with playing in the Pro Bowl. I do not blame him for not wanting to play in the Pro Bowl. There's lots of different things about the Pro Bowl that I don't like, but I don't mind players that don't want to go and play. There's multiple different reasons other than you look at it. It's a little bit different because it's not tackle football anymore. So it's, flag football. So the risk of injury is a lot less, which is great for the players. But why? What does he have to prove? What does he have to go do on the football field? In fact, I could actually make an argument that this would mean more that he's more likely to come back because he doesn't want to go play in the Pro Bowl. And if he was thinking that he was absolutely done, no chance he's coming back, and he is done with football, don't you think he'd want to go play one more game, get around some of the guys that he doesn't normally get to see on a regular basis, and go play one more game, even if it's not what you exactly want? But the reality is he has a schedule that he has to keep with his podcast and everything else he has in his life. And playing in the Pro Bowl for a guy like Travis Kelce doesn't make a big difference to him. So he's done it multiple times in his career. There's no reason for him to go back and do it again. And I don't blame him for not wanting to play. I do think that it's great that he made the Pro Bowl. I'm glad that he did, and I think that it shows that he still has it, and he's still worthy of it, and he still has the ability to play if he wants to. So I also look at this and I'm thinking, okay, maybe what we ought to consider and maybe what we ought to be looking at is the fact that when he found out Eric Bieniemy was coming back, they had a podcast basically the next day. And one of his first comments was, "Man, I love EB. I cannot wait to see him back in the building." Now, does that sound like a guy that's ready to hang up his cleats? Now, it's possible that he just said that as a one-off and hadn't thought about it and all of that. Sure, it's all speculation at this point. But when you look at it from that perspective, I would argue that it says way more clearly that he is more likely to come back and play in 2026 for a multitude of reasons than he is to hang it up and not play again. And quite frankly, I don't think that this Pro Bowl, him not playing, really means anything. It's possible it could go both directions. I would say it leans more towards it doesn't really matter to him, and he doesn't need the money, so there's no real reason for him to go. Look at what he's making on his podcast. He's making more on his podcast on a yearly basis than he's making in the NFL, or that he will make in the NFL in 2026. There's going to be a conversation that needs to be had about what the Chiefs are going to be able to pay him in 2026 if he is willing to come back and play. And we'll have that conversation. I don't know that we'll get into it tomorrow, but I am going to talk about the salary cap tomorrow. So be sure to come back for that. But, you look at that, and that's just one of the things that's going on. There's not a ton of stuff going on with the Chiefs right now. This is the offseason. We are not used to having this type of conversation because usually Kansas City's still playing the playoffs at this point. Travis Kelce did get PFWA honors, as did Creed Humphrey, and Creed Humphrey also got All-Pro honors, first team. Something to think about there. One of the other things to mention that we haven't really had a chance to talk about, Patrick Mahomes and Ashton Gelati and George Karlaftis all won rewards from the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is the MVP. Ashton Gelati is the Mackley Hill Award on. George Karlaftis got the Ed Block Courage Award for 2025. One other thing to mention about Kelce, and something to consider and look at going forward, he is also up for one of the biggest honors in the NFL. He is a contender for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. We will find out, I think it's this weekend, or maybe next Thursday, right before the Super Bowl, who won that when they do the NFL honors. So that is going to be something to watch over the next couple of weeks. We'll see whether or not Travis Kelce is going to win the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Again, in summary, though, of this, I don't think him not playing in the Pro Bowl means anything as to whether or not he's going to play in 2026 or not play in 2026. Don't think it really matters whatsoever. I just think that this is a situation where he's looking at it from the perspective of, I don't need to go play in the Pro Bowl. It does nothing for me. I don't need the money, and I've got other things I want to go do, or I just want to have my time. That makes a lot of sense too. With what he makes from his podcast and what he made from the NFL, getting paid what he's going to get paid for the Pro Bowl isn't going to matter. So to me, I don't think that that's really a big deal. When we get back, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl matchup because it is set. It's going to be the New England Patriots versus the Seattle Seahawks, and we're going to talk about that next. If you've ever hired somebody who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I need to hire someone for this show, I go straight to Indeed to be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a higher than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners to the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. We have a rematch. It is going to be the Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. We will see whether or not it is going to go a little bit more like what it did the last time and the Patriots win the game, or if Seattle is going to find a way to win the Super Bowl. This is an interesting matchup to me. I always thought it was going to be the Patriots. I didn't think that the Broncos had a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. because they lost Bo Nix right after the AFC Championship, right before the divisional game to get to the AFC Championship game. So Nix didn't even play. And you watch some of that game for the Broncos and the Patriots, and it just never seemed like Denver's offense could do anything. Stidham played okay at times, but then struggled mightily at different times. And I will say this. Say what you want about Mike Vrabel. He is extremely situationally aware. And one of his best situationally aware plays came right before Stidham threw an interception that cost Denver the game at the end of the game. And it's Denver substituted late, so he sent in two of his own guys late, made Denver wait, made the clock get way down in the play clock, and then forced Stidham to rush his mechanics, rush the snap, rush everything, and he ends up throwing a pick, which was probably 10 yards short of where it needed to be thrown. Bad conditions regardless, so there's lots of things there. I don't know that this game really surprised me too much, other than New England really struggled on offense, but they're playing the Broncos, so you have to think that plays into that some, but it's not a great sign when you consider the Seahawks have a pretty good defense too. So we will see when they take on the Seahawks in the Super Bowl who is going to get the better of that deal. I will say this. I still don't know that I'm fully on board with Drake May being as good as a lot of people are trying to say he is. His schedule to get here before the playoffs wasn't great. He did beat the Houston Texans, although I will be fair about that and say C.J. Stroud did more to give that game away than I would think Drake May probably did to really go and win it, because Stroud just absolutely could not do anything right in that game. You watch the game against the Broncos, they scored 10 points. And don't get me wrong, I understand that you look at that game and the field conditions were bad. There was snow. It was cold. I understand all that. And you won't have any of that in the Super Bowl. I get that too. But when you only score 10 points, it's going to be very, very hard for your defense to be able to stop the other team, to hold them under that amount to be able to win the game. And when you look at the fact that the Broncos were starting Stidham, who hadn't played a game in 2 years, that's not a great situation to put him in. I mean, obviously the Broncos got to a point where they could have possibly won the game, but go back and look. I mean, Stidham was the reason that the Broncos lost. Point blank. You look at both of the plays that they lost, it was they decided to try to throw the ball deep, trying to get back into the game late, and Stidham underthrew the ball by 10 yards. The Patriots couldn't do anything on offense in the first half, and the only reason they even got their touchdown, which is another point as to why I'm not sure about May, the only reason they got their touchdown was because they created a turnover deep in Bronco territory, which one could argue they should have never gotten an offensive touchdown, because it should have been a defensive touchdown based on what happened in the play, but it was called dead. They got the ball. They took it, 10, 15 yards at max and got a touchdown. All that being said, I don't see how that's going to help them against the Seattle Seahawks team, who looks like they can really move the ball both on the ground and through the air. So it's going to be a big question as to how the Patriots are able to attack the Seattle Seahawks. Now, when you look at it and you flip it to the Seahawks versus the Seahawks versus the Rams, that was a game that came down to the wire, and it came down to a situation where you have the Rams have the ability to go and try to win the game, and they weren't able to get it done. I'm not going to lie, I was rooting for the Rams. I like Matt Stafford. I always have. Really hope that they would have drafted him to Kansas City. Obviously, they never had the chance. And then they drafted Mahomes after, so not complaining. But I've always liked Matt Stafford as a quarterback. I think he's a very good quarterback. I'm just going to be curious to see, can Sam Darnold continue to do what he has done this season? It seems like he has the pieces around him to be successful in Seattle. And if that's truly the case, then you're in a situation where you're going to have a Super Bowl that probably is going to be pretty lopsided, because, quite frankly, I just don't think the Patriots are going to be able to put up a ton of points. I could be wrong. We'll see. And there's going to be a lot of things to talk about over the next couple of weeks when you get into breaking down this game and how the Patriots are going to prepare for this Seattle team. But Seattle played well all season long. Darnold has played well all season long, and he looks like he has a superstar wide receiver in Jackson Smith-Njigba. And Kenneth Walker played a great part in that game as well. So between Kenneth Walker and Jackson Smith-Njigba, the Seattle team had a offense that continued to move the ball up and down the field on the Rams, who have a pretty good pass rush. I will say that. I just don't think that this is going to be a close Super Bowl. I do think that this is going to end up being a game where it's going to be Seattle, and Seattle's probably going to win by 2 scores, maybe even more than that, because I don't think that the Patriots are quite ready to compete at that level. We will see if I'm right on that. But the reality is like you're in a situation where now the Broncos are obviously defeated. They are done for the season. Bo Nix will get a chance to recover. He'll be back next season, ready to go. I'm sure probably early on. I haven't seen the timeline on when he should be ready to play. Justin Herbert will have a new offensive coordinator, another one. So we'll see how that goes for Justin Herbert. The Raiders don't have a head coach yet. We're sitting here less than a week away from it being February 1st, and the Raiders still don't have a head coach as of this recording. So this division is going to be possibly, I'm not going to say wide open, but it's going to be pretty open next season. And the big question going into the season is going to be, is Patrick Mahomes? And that's something that we're not going to know for a couple of months. Mahomes said, his recovery is going well, and he's going to push himself. And the Chiefs have to be careful with him to make sure he doesn't push himself too far, because you don't want a re-injury of any sort. But I would expect he could be ready at least by October 1st, if not ready to start the regular season. We will see, but that's going to be the big question. And it's all going to come down to, can Patrick Mahomes find a way to get healthy and be able to play? If he can, this is going to be a great division in 2026. It's going to be very competitive, because I do think the Chiefs' offense is going to be better. There's a lot of things that they have to do offensively and defensively to get ready for the 2026 season. We're going to be talking about a lot of those. Matt's going to join us on Wednesday, and I think he's going to actually come back for a bonus episode as well, or an extra episode this week for Matt. So watch out for that. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a deep dive on the salary cap. I'm going to take a look at where the Chiefs are. What can Kansas City do? How can they make some adjustments? Can they get ready? Because currently they are sitting at a point where they are, I believe, $60 million over the salary cap for 2026 as it sits right now. 63 or 62.4 almost is what they're projected to be over on the salary cap. We have no idea what the actual salary cap number is going to be. That's just what the projection is right now. That is not a situation that you want to be in, but there's a lot of ways to make some space. We're going to get into those on tomorrow's show. Thank you all for listening. We really do truly appreciate it. Go check out another show, whether it's the Locked On Chiefs Squad show or maybe Locked On NFL, which will be getting you ready for the Super Bowl. A lot more to come later this week. Thank you all for listening today, and we will talk to you tomorrow.